Welcome everyone to this Let's Play of Kerbal Space Program 1.1. We have been turbocharged. If only the same could be said for our mini science rover that is here on Duna. Now, in the previous episode, this is episode 43. In the previous episode 42, we landed this little rover here on Duna. And so it's about time we took a little bit of science. Now, I've already taken a mystery goo containment unit samples. Let's review that data. It would be 80 science if we manage to recover this little vehicle, but we're not going to be able to do that. We're going to have to transmit that science for 24 science. That's only 30% of possible science, but let's transmit that now. So let us transmit that. Transmitting will render this unit completely inoperable. Not much we can do about that. So let's transmit that data now. You can see the Communitron 16 there opening up, transmitting away. So there's 24 science from the Highlands applied. Now, what other science can we do? We've got the magnetometer boom here. So let's log some magnetometer data. And you can see from these new pinnable menus, we are indeed using 1.1.2 to be precise. Now we can transmit all of this science. So there's 40 potential science. So let's transmit that. You can see the transmission starting here. So there's another 40 added from Duna's Highlands. So let's toggle the magnetometer and then unpin that menu. So that's that done. Now we've got a little seismic accelerometer here underneath the back of our probe, our little rover here. So let's log the seismic data, override the seismic data that's already in the canister. Let's take another punt at some science. It's only going to be 3.2 science. Only 2% of that will be recovered. Not much we can do about that, so let's transmit that as well. There's our transmission again, and the transmission is going up to our satellite orbiting above, and that will then be relayed on to Kerbin for them to study. So there we go, 72%. 88, 92, not quite enough science. Not quite enough science, not quite enough energy to transmit that tiny amount of science. So we're going to have to wait for the amount of electric charge just to build up. So whilst we do that, I think we should pop back up to our science satellite, which is orbiting above us. So let's just have a look here at our orbit. So that's where we are, down here in the southern hemisphere, just next to the polar ice cap. And here we find Duna 1. This is the science orbiter that we have. So let's just switch to that and see what science we can do from that satellite, because I'm sure we should be able to glean just a little bit. So there we go. We've got our scanner here on the front, and we have our transmitter transmitting back to Kerbin. So what can we manage from here? We can produce an orbital survey. So let's do an orbital survey. So there we go, uploading the data now, but there's not enough electric charge, and this could prove a little bit limiting, but there is a way around this. If we go to our transmitter, I can't quite reach. There we go. Let's go right in. Here we go. And what we can do is we can change the setting on the Communitron 16 and any transmitter for that matter to require complete, or if we go to our relay transmitter, here we go, we can change it to allow partial. Now, allow partial will substantially degrade the amount of science that we get from the transmission, but at least we will get some. And why is that important? Well, if we look at our contract, we have to transmit or recover some science data from space around Kerbin. We've already managed to transmit some from our rover on the surface. So, to complete our Explore Duna contract, we still have to transmit some science from above the surface of Duna. And the advantage of doing this is twofold, because we will also then get ourselves a materials map of the surface. So let's try doing our transmission again. So let's perform the orbital survey. We're not going to have enough energy, but it is going to keep retrying every few percent. So let's just go and have a look at, there we go. Every few percent it is going to have another crack at transmitting this science. We're only up to 25%. So we will pop back to this probe when we finally manage to put through the last dribble of science. And there we go, transmitted science back to, well, I was about to say Duna, back to Kerbin, and you can see our map of the surface is rather yellow, but it is complete. Now you'll also notice the satellite has rather fallen off its axis because of course the SAS switched off when it ran out of power. So it has been tumbling rather a lot in the meantime. But let's get the SAS back on and get ourselves reorientated. Let's turn ourselves around this away so we get the maximum amount of light on our panels. There we go. So we do have rather a yellow surface to Duna at the moment, and that's primarily because our biome map is currently concentrated entirely on well, whatever this yellow stuff is, dirt probably. Yeah, we have rather a lot of dirt on Duna, as if you wouldn't have known that in advance. Exotic minerals, 0.1% exotic minerals. You can see some very faint areas here. What have we got? No, we've not got much around here. We do have some exotic minerals here. Not that our little rover is going to be probing them very much. Gypsum, quite a lot of gypsum on the planet's surface, but most people will normally be interested in carbonite. So we have quite a good spread of carbonite, and we can use this cutoff value that's here on the right just to look for higher concentrations. So if we go up 10, 20, it was probably too much. There we go. 10, 20, is there any left at 30? No, so it's quite smeared across the surface at relatively low concentrations. What else do we have? We have hydrates from which we can claim water using the USI modules. You'd think there'd be a lot more water here on the polar regions, but obviously this is not water ice. Perhaps it's carbon dioxide ice. Something that will need to be investigated at another time. But the more common material, ore, is shown here in this rather lovely pink. Let's see if we can find where the highest concentrations of ore are. Too much there. There we go. So there's the highest concentrations of ore highlighted here in this rather bright pink. And as it would happen, we have two high concentrations here of basic ore just either side of our probe. We really must change the icon for our probe. But at the moment, drilling on the surface is not our most important priority. Science is our most important priority, and here we have some completed contracts. We would do if I kept the window on the screen. We have completely and successfully explored the entirety of Duna, it would appear, for 500,000 credits and 17 reputation, although that doesn't seem to have earned us any science. But the transmission of science did, so we did get a little bit of science. So let's bin that particular contract complete. And we've transmitted and recovered some science from space around Duna. We'd transmitted some science earlier to complete the surface contract, or the parameter I should say, and that got us 37,000 and an additional 6 science simply for transmitting that data. So we've accumulated a lot of data, we've accumulated a lot of money, and we now have 2 objectives. We've spent a lot of money getting here, and we need rather a lot of science. Now, there's not much science on our satellite, but there is a little bit of science on our probe, our little rover down here. So I'm going to take that rover into the ice cap and repeat some of the science. So let's go and see what science we can get from the ice cap. Well, we've made some progress. I say some progress. We are currently, you can just see our landing spot here where the science bay is 6.7 kilometers behind us, and we still have some way to go. This valley seems to be leading into the icy wastes that are the south pole of Duna. But if we roll back out, you can see that well, we're about 2/3 of the way. We're about here. There's our landing spot. You can just see the debris there. So we're about here. So we are about 2/3 of the way. So I'm going to continue down. This must be the valley that we were looking at. Continue down here and see if I can get into the polar regions. The mission has been taking quite a while. Getting here has proven a little bit of a problem. Good thing is the slope is relatively smooth and undulating, unlike some places on the Mun and Minmus, where there can be quite sudden changes in the surface's direction, which would cause something as small as this and as imbalanced as this some considerable problem. And the particular problem I've been having is that I think this magnetometer boom makes this vehicle very, very, very lopsided, and it wants to keep turning to the right, so I have to be very, very careful steering. So that's proved a little bit of a problem so far. I've also turned off the brakes at the front to ensure we don't go head over heels, and I've switched off the steering at the back as well. I did have a problem with it steering a little bit too vigorously, shall we say, so I've switched that off as well. So a little bit of a delicate maneuver, this, getting to the pole. I didn't realise it was going to be quite so far away and take quite such a long time. But still, let us proceed. We will rejoin our little rover here when we get a good bit closer. Well, we're almost there now. I've pulled up next to this sizable rock. It's odd how so many rocks on Duna look exactly the same. But this one I'm going to call Orbital's Rock, just because I can. A subscriber who's always been very, very generous in his comments. Orbiter, the Kerbal engineer, go check him out today. But I thought I'd pull up here because we are also almost on the boundary of the southern polar cap. You can just see the dusty frost here along this line, along this sort of ridge. You can see some rather dusty looking rocks off here in the distance, covered in frost as they are. So we haven't got far to go. So I'm going to mosey on down this little slope until we get into the southern polar biome, and then we can start taking some readings. Hopefully they will garner us a lot of science, but there's only one way to find out. Well, we've made some progress now, but not entirely the progress I was expecting. We are now in a very frosty looking biome, but it's not the polar biome that I was expecting. If we have a look at the too hot thermometer and log the temperature, we are actually in Duna's craters biome, but that is going to issue us with 32 science, and we've got plenty of electric charge now. It's surprising how much downhill there is when you're going towards the southern pole. So I haven't had to use the accelerator very much, so I've been charging up and saving my battery power. So let's transmit that science. So there goes one of our communitrons transmitting away. So that's another 32 science available to us. Let's see what else we can do here if we log pressure data. That would be another 48 science. So let's transmit that. It's only half its value, but we'll take it anyway. So there we go, transmitting away. There we go, another 48 science added. Now I don't think I've got. We could try. There we go. Why don't we try? The laser radiation experiment here on the back, the surface ablation laser light imager. Let's see if we can find out what this ice is actually made of. So let's do that. Collect rather disappears down there into the frost. We get 48 silence. 48 silence. It's fully transmittable, and it appears that there are trace amounts of water amongst the iron oxide of the surface. That's obviously the orange surface which the laser penetrated through, not the ice itself. Not very helpful, but it is 48 science. So let's transmit that 48 science back up to our orbital probe. Which will then relay that back to KSC. So there's another 48 science added. Now I could do a goo from here, but I want to save the goo. So let's do a magnetometer scan. There we go. So extend the magnetometer. That's going to give us another 40 science from Duna's craters. So let's transmit that. We can see the transmission taking place here in the top left, so that's another 40 science. Let's retract, there we go, toggle the magnetometer, and let's keep on trucking. Let's see if we can find this elusive South Pole. Perhaps it's over the next ridge. Now, we didn't actually have to go that far. I've pulled up amongst this group of icy boulders. We're a total of 15.7 kilometers from our original landing spot. And we are actually now, if we do, let's cram our way in here. This was not a very clever place to put this thermometer. But if we log the temperature now, you see we are at Duna's poles. Both of them at once, apparently. But again, we can get another 32 science, so let's transmit that. So that's starting that transmission. And I guess it's about time we trundled through all of our experiments, because we're not coming back. So let's log the pressure data. That's another 48 science, so let's transmit that. We've got the seismic accelerometer, so we can log this data. Yeah, let's log this data. We're going to have to overwrite the previous sample, but let's log this sample. We'll get 72 science out of a potential 160, which is nothing to be sneezed at. So let's transmit that science. What else we got? Oh, we got the second of the goo canisters. So let's observe that mystery goo. The goo looks pink. Oh, good. And that's only going to issue us with 24 science. But we can't transmit that yet. We've rather run out of electricity. So let's just keep that experiment. I don't know that we've got any... Oh, we can do the magnetometer boom. Let's see. Let's log the magnetometer data. There we go. So that's going to issue us with another 40 science. But again, we haven't got that much electric charge. So I will keep that experiment. And the remaining experiments, they're going to require quite a lot of electric charge as well. Now, where is the sun? The sun's still rising up behind us. We've got quite a lot of exposure onto this panel here at the back. So I'm going to wait until we have fully recharged, and then we can do these two experiments. This one at the back, which is the surface ablation laser light imager, and then this one at the front, which is the X-ray diffraction surface analyzer. I'm going to wait. They're rather high energy experiments, so I'm going to wait until we've recharged, probably around midday Duna time. possibly a little bit earlier than that. And then we will complete our round of experiments. And whilst that won't be Duna exhausted, it will be an exhausted KSC. So let's just wait and see how much science we're going to be able to collect. Well, like moving from the craters to the polar biome, that didn't actually take as long as I expected. It's still, 10 o'clock in the Duna morning, although it's a little bit difficult to tell. We are rather low in the southern hemisphere, so it is rather difficult to tell exactly what time it is Duna time. But we do now have a full set of battery charge. So let's just try this experiment here. So let's collect some X-ray data. There's the probe going down into the surface. And now we can watch the analysis itself. If you watch very closely, there we go. The diffraction taking place, and that is going to yield us 80 science. So we do appear to have a thick layer of water ice along with carbon dioxide ice obscuring any analysis of the soil further below. So the surface is probably that carbon dioxide ice we assumed earlier, with water ice a little bit further down. But let's transmit that science. Let's let KSC make the analysis. So that's transmitting that. So let's see how much of our charge we're going to get through. Probably most of it at this rate. There we go. So that's another 80 science transmitted, and that got through well over half of it. So let's see how much charge we're going to have left to see if we can collect laser data from this imager on the back of the buggy. There goes the probes. There we go. This takes the samples. That's going to be another 48 science. So let's see if we can transmit that. Apparently the frozen surface of Duna poles sublimates a significant amount of carbon dioxide. Yep, well, I think our supposition is true, that this surface probably is carbon dioxide ice. So let's just transmit that back to the KSC. So there we go. 33, 44, 77. There we go. 48 further science transmitted from the surface of Duna. So I think that probably is all of the experiments that we have crammed in. We did a thermometer, which is crammed in behind here. So I think that probably is all the science we're going to get done on this particular mission. So I think it's about time we headed back to KSC and see what the research boffins are going to be able to do with all that science we've retrieved. However, with that said, that's going to be for our next episode. So I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.